Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. First of all, apologies for being delayed. I had to start over half an hour later than intended because I had to finish off some things. Apologies for that. I also would like to welcome some people who are new to this entire topic, who have told me that they would also like to know what's going on. These were members of the military, the British military and others, who seem to be completely oblivious to the sort of crimes that we're talking about here. So I will start with an introduction for absolutely everybody, also the people who are new here, because I think it's important that everybody understands the gravity of the situation and the importance of what we're doing here. By the way, I apologize about the background. That's Mylar covering up sheets of aluminium behind that. I have to literally work in a bunker right now. I am in Zurich in Switzerland. I'm preparing court cases and I'm being shot in the head at every opportunity from neighboring properties with microwave, pulsed microwave machine guns, essentially. That happens day and night for me and my 4 colleagues who are in Brussels, Belgium. That's Melanie Richan. And 3 of my colleagues are in the US. That's Karen Melton Stewart, the NSA whistleblower. She is in Maryland. And Ramola D is in Massachusetts. She's a journalist. And Dr. Millicent Black is in Tennessee. She's a pastor and a human rights activist. And all of us are being nonstop assaulted. All of us are also implanted. We have been covertly implanted by the intelligence agencies. We all have scans, either from private investigators or universities, showing that our bodies are emitting at high frequency that can be measured with bug detectors, with high frequency measuring devices. We've got scans in Faraday cages, outside of Faraday cages, and we also have doctor's notes saying that we have laser surgery scars on our bodies. Now, that's already quite a lot to take in for most people, that these sort of things can happen. None of us have consented to be implanted. None of us have consented to be tortured and mutilated with the implants and the directed energy weapons. But that's just a situation that we are facing. We're also just one small group of a very, very large number of victims. The number of victims globally is estimated to be at least several 100,000, if not several million. And these are people who have systematically their organs destroyed with directed energy weapons, who have their lives destroyed, who are tortured daily, who are being assaulted. They suffer break-ins from intelligence agents and the trainee spy mob groups that are being trained up by the intelligence agencies all around the world. And the question is, what on earth is going on? It took me personally quite some time to figure this out. I became openly physically targeted in January 2016. I was covertly assaulted already before without recognizing that these are directed energy weapons. I mistook them to be just normal physical complaints, but they were highly strange. Nevertheless, it took me a very, very long time, but my current best assessment is that this is a global Holocaust that is meant to be conducted with directed energy weapons and a multitude of other things, including parasites, synthetic parasites, and poisons, and implants, and anything that you can imagine. But the number of deaths is really astoundingly large. And the key element of this seems to be that thugs literally utter what I would call lowlife, and the total scum of society is being armed with directed energy weapons, microwave weapons, sonic weapons, anything. And they are let loose on their neighbors. They are trained up in a sort of death squad matrix. Researchers like Mark M. Rich have also traced down the military plans for this. It's following the Phoenix program that was conducted in Vietnam, and the experience that the military and the intelligence agencies gathered running these death squads in Latin America and so on. And this is now being let loose on the civilian population in Western Europe and the US. I have been personally physically assaulted in the UK, in Germany, in Switzerland, where I am currently, but also in Italy, in Romania, in Belgium, and in the Netherlands. And the assaults follow me seamlessly. So this is pretty established that this is an international program, and combining my knowledge with that of my colleagues, I can safely say this is a global program. So that's the situation we're facing. If you're doubting any of the things that I'm saying, some people are still stuck somewhere in the, I don't know what's the 19th century, and they don't believe that directed energy weapons exist. There's lots of evidence on my channel. I'm about to upload more information, for example, how my microwave is emitting like hell, something I didn't know, and how that radiation can also be measured through a wall. So I will be uploading videos proving that microwave radiation goes through walls without problems. Roughly half of the radiation is absorbed by a wall, or reflected rather, but there's still enough radiation coming through that you can kill people with these microwave weapons and electromagnetic weapons through the walls. So this means that people can be maimed and killed inside their own home by silent weapons that they cannot smell or hear or see. Sometimes they can feel them. I mean, a lot of the times it causes pain, but even so, it's very hard to know where the hell that's coming from, you know. And this is exactly what's being used by these death squads that move in next to victims and seem to be systematically murdering them, and murdering their families and murdering their neighbors. So given that that's the situation, what we need is a global systematic appraisal of what on earth is going on, what the methods are of these criminals, and how on earth to actually prove that in court. There are two efforts here. The very first effort was the ex-technical leader of the NSA, William Binney, who paired up with his old colleague Kirk Wiebe, who is a senior intelligence analyst, or was at NSA. The two of them became whistleblowers after 9/11, and they informed the world about the illegal mass surveillance and mass data collection of American communication data and so on. William Binney was also invited by the German parliament, the Bundestag, to speak about this. So these are very, very high-profile individuals, and they have launched, I think it was in the middle of June, a global targeted individual survey. So targeted individual is the word given for the victims of the military and the intelligence agencies, the civilian victims who are being systematically tortured and murdered. And I first would like to point everybody to the location of that survey, because I am of the firm opinion that before you fill out the affidavit, you should actually fill out that survey first, because that survey is completely unbiased. So it's not, it's specifically designed such that it doesn't lead you. So I just brought up the, hang on, I've got the video, the YouTube video where the two gentlemen released it. So let me first share my screen and let me show you, hang on, let me first post the link into the chat. So you don't have to believe me, you can just look at what's out there. So here is the link to the first survey. This is not by me, this is by the leaders from NSA, two guys that I respect a lot. I think they're both top men, and we can be pleased to have them on our team. So if you click on that link, I hope I copied the right one. Let me share my screen and show you what you will see. So it will take you, hopefully, to this site. So this is called a launch of the Global Targeted Individual Survey with survey instructions, okay? Here are the two gentlemen. This is Bill Binney, this is Kirk Wiebe. And together with the two ladies who helped them with the survey, they are describing what the survey consists of. And I think here in the description below, they are the contact details, so global TI survey at gmail.com. And you have to send, I think, an email to that email address, and then you'll get an access code, and you will be guided to a website where you can fill out your details. And the data will be analyzed by these ladies and Kirk Wiebe and Bill Binney. And the entire idea is that you first fill out your all the things that happen to you, the physical symptoms, totally unbiased and without being led in any way. Okay, so this is very, very important. So I really think that you should, if you haven't done so, please stop watching this video now and please go and first fill out this global TI survey first, because anything that I'm going to say next might bias you, might bias the results. So please stop watching, fill out this survey first, and then come back. This video will be on my YouTube channel after that, so you don't have to be afraid that you will miss out on something. But it is really extremely important that if you're a genuine victim, that you first fill that out in the most unbiased fashion, and let those people know. And that's because they want to do a proper, serious statistical analysis of all the things that are happening, okay? And you should approach the survey in the most unbiased way possible, just focusing on what you know has happened to you, okay? So what those gentlemen are doing and their team is the actual survey, so a statistical analysis of what's going on. And that's very important to understand. So they want to have completely unbiased data, okay, just to have the global overview of these crimes. And that's why I should do that first. Now, what I'm doing is I'm working on the same team, we're working in the same direction, but what I'm doing is completely independent of that and has a totally different purpose. So they want to have an actual survey to be able to say with statistical confidence in the most scientific way possible that these crimes are indeed going on. Now, I am personally a victim, and I have seen a lot. All the women on my team are victims. So who we are the joint investigation team. You can go to jointinvestigation.org if you want to find out who we are. Let me just share my screen again and show you what that looks like. So if you want to find out who we are, you go to jointinvestigation.org. Okay, that's our website. There will be some reports forthcoming about these crimes, but if you go to the About section, you will find details of who I am and all my colleagues, okay? Further details so you can convince yourself, do you trust us? Each one of my colleagues is very, very public. You will find us on YouTube, and you can also watch us weekly on the Techno Crime Fighters Forum, which is being broadcast on Thursdays in English, and typically on Fridays in German, called Technokriminalermittler. And the Friday session I conduct with my German colleague, Melanie Richan. So this is also the who's who for download. You can use that in your court files. That's why we've stuck it in as a PDF document. Now, what we are doing, all 5 women here are being physically mutilated with directed energy weapons by our respective intelligence agencies and police and military. Now, we know for sure that these crimes are happening, and we want to work towards court cases as absolutely quickly as possible, because we are literally being murdered live. So what we are doing instead, I am not working on a scientific analysis to convince the world that these crimes are happening. I'm working on actually pinning down the exact nature of the crimes and getting victim testimonies in the form of notarized affidavits for use in court. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to find out what every victim has suffered in the greatest detail, with as much as you can say about that, about the crimes committed against you, about what you've suffered, the damage you incurred, and so on. And I would like to combine that with other victim testimonies to show the judges in court what these crimes are, the nature and how prevalent these crimes are. So this is another way of doing it. If you have something extremely odd happening, a very bizarre type of crime, if you only have one person, then it might sound strange to people, it might sound incredible. But if the very same highly unlikely and bizarre thing happens to people on different continents in exactly the same way, you know you're dealing with an organized crime cartel pulling off the same thing over and over. And this is exactly what I'm trying to prove. Now, my idea is the following. If every victim fills out the affidavit, but we write our actual testimonies in a way that makes it comparable to other testimonies, it makes it very quick and easy for a judge to see that what's going on here is a global program, okay? And to make it easy to compare one affidavit to another, my idea was that we all agree on the same numbered sections. So I'm not giving away anything by saying that most victims will experience something, some form of, for example, gang stalking. They will be harassed by the harm intel, by the human intelligence networks of the intelligence agencies and law enforcement. They might experience break-ins. They might experience computer hacking. Their car might be sabotaged, or their tires might be slashed, and so on. And then they might experience attacks with directed energy weapons. And then they might experience attacks with neural weapons, and so on. They might have implants, and. If we all agree that we have one section on gang stalking, and everybody has the same number, puts the same number on that section, and then we have another number, say number 1 is stalking, number 2 is break-ins, number 3 is car sabotage, and so on, number 4 directed energy weapons. If we all agree on the section numbering, and if a section doesn't apply to us, we just say not applicable, and then move to the next. If we do that, then we can take each other's affidavits to court, and you can write your own affidavit, and in your court bundle you can include as many other victim affidavits as you can gather, and then you can say, for example, in the UK you would say, my lord, people keep breaking into my home, and sometimes they come in and all they do is rearrange my cupboard, as happened to me, for example. Or they come in and they just cut up my clothes, as happened to me and my colleague Melanie, for example. Now, this sounds pretty incredible to somebody. Why would somebody go through the hassle of breaking in and just cut up your clothes? Why wouldn't they steal the clothes? Well, of course, this is not a normal burglary. This is harassment by the intelligence agencies and their trainee networks. Now, if you want to convince somebody that this is actually going on, if you're just on your own, it will sound incredible. But as soon as I combine my testimony, including my photographs of the clothes that have been cut up with what looks like nail clippers and other devices, and Melanie writes her affidavit, and it's identical damage, it's very unlikely that two women who've never met each other before, one in Belgium, the other one in Switzerland, are both complaining about the same thing, and they spontaneously went mad, thinking exactly the same thing, and then proceeded to cut up their own clothes. So that makes it highly unlikely that it's our fault, but it makes highly likely that there's some sort of program using the same methods. Now, it gets even more interesting when there are many, many offenses, and these targeting programs are systematic takedown operations with your death, the victim's death, as its goal. So a normal victim would experience so many criminal offenses, sometimes in just 1 year or a month or a week, that it's a total statistical outlier. I mean, to give you an idea, I have experienced stalking, multiple break-ins with just security, intelligence agency harassment sort of patterns. My car was sabotaged. I had property damage. I have live documented computer hacking. I've got financial fraud. My bank details have been stolen, and I've got evidence of directed energy weapons being shot at me in my private home. Now, it's pretty unlikely that every one of those happens just by pure chance. You might have some hackers breaking into your computer and giving you a virus, but you're very unlikely to have that and the next day have your car sabotaged, and the day after have a break-in in your home. So already within one victim testimony, you can combine many, many different offenses and see it's such a statistical outlier, it's not going to happen just by chance. Something else is going on. Now, when you combine one victim testimony with many others, and every section is confirmed by many, many other people who have observed exactly the same thing, all of these people, all of the victims are typically people of very high integrity, of excellent standing. It wouldn't occur to them to just make up such stories. At that point, you can prove in court that what we're dealing with is actually an international takedown operation using the intelligence agencies and law enforcement and things like that. Okay, so that's the premise. I had to bang on about this in greatest detail so that you all understand what the entire purpose is. So number one, do the Global TI survey by Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe. Please do that first. Now I'm going to talk about the affidavit draft. Okay, so if you haven't done the survey by Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe, please stop watching now and do that first. Okay, because I do not want to bias their survey. If you have done that, however, here's now the next stage, because while Bill and Kirk are collecting the data for a scientific survey, what you would like as a victim is to appear in court, make these nutters stop, and then actually get compensation. So here is now I'm going to share my screen again and show you my suggestion for that. If you go to my website called stop007.org, okay, stop007.org, you should get to this website, okay. By the way, the website needs tidying up. I just didn't have time. But at the very top, the very first link is this affidavit draft template, and the link to the PDF file is here, okay. Download the affidavit draft template. Please click there, okay, and then you should get this document. And don't be shocked, it's 86 pages long, but that's because I have done a lot of the work for you. Now, the first 2 pages explain what's going on, okay? So this is, first of all, note the red writing here. This is a draft, okay? Do not send me this as your final affidavit. What this is the first draft that I'm sharing with you, okay? And what I want to know from you is, are there any aspects of the crimes committed against you that are not incorporated in here, that you don't have a section where you can actually fill it in? So this is specifically for consultation with the victim community, okay? Now, what you should do with this, and this is explained here, is you should use it as an exercise. I'll show you how the draft looks like. Go through and make bullet points, you know, start entering the different aspects. And then if you notice that something that happened to you that might have happened to many other victims too, then please send me an email to contact@stop007.org, and please use the subject line affidavit template. If you don't use the subject line, it's probably going to be drowned in other nonsense I receive, typically from agents. So please write that in, and then be as short as possible and say, please include the following sections and subsections, because I think that would be a good idea. Okay, so that's all I want from people right now. And then on the 1st of October, that's in 2 weeks' time, when everybody has given me their opinion, you can see the final draft. Okay, the final draft will probably be slightly different, so section numberings will change, but it won't be fundamentally different. Okay, so what you have here, first of all, is a table of contents, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay, but as you can see, it already has, you know, first one section, background and overview, then a long section on stalking, harassment, street theater, and so on. Okay, now the entire point is the following. It's about these sections, okay? It's very important we all agree, because then if we all write our stalking and harassment experience in section number 2, then it makes it very easy in court to compare affidavits, okay? So the entire point is the section numbering here, okay? So let's fast forward through the table of contents. What's also extremely important is the very first page. When I'm through the table of contents, you can see it goes on and on and on. Okay, so the actual affidavit in its final form will be affidavit of, and then please enter your full name here. And then this is the sort of fields you have to leave open if you want to use this affidavit in a UK court or in a court somewhere. Something for the claim number and so on and so on. Who is this affidavit by, and on whose behalf, and what's the court case that it's being used in. Now, this is information that you might not know at the time, so you don't have to fill this bit in. You can leave it blank. One of the things that is very, very important is that here in the final draft, you should write your full name. Okay, so I so-and-so of so-and-so, and here goes your full address, including the country. State on oath and say as follows. I make this affidavit based on my personal knowledge, and unless otherwise stated, and that the following facts and matters are accurate to the best of my knowledge. And that's when the actual affidavit starts. Now, I already want to ask the community if their jurisdiction is happy with this sort of affidavit draft, okay? Because I noticed, for example, in the UK courts, you say state on oath and say as follows. And in the US jurisdiction, you seem to say I make oath and say as follows. Now, I think any court that rejects affidavits for crimes against humanity because just one word is different has to be burned to the ground. So I don't think that will be a big deal. However, if your jurisdiction expects something totally different, then please let me know and we'll try to take account of it. The idea is to have one template that applies to as many jurisdictions as possible so that many people can use it. Okay, so please also say your opinion. If you have some legal insight and you think this is wrong, please let me know. Now let's get on to the actual, oh yeah, sorry, whilst I'm at the talking about the formalities, here on the very last page, yes, when you finished filling out this template in the final draft, you have to sign, and the signature should be witnessed. You should sign the statement of truth, which is I believe that the facts stated in this affidavit are true, and then don't sign it straight away. First get somebody to witness your signature and then sign it before them, okay? And then below here should be the person who is what's it called, entitled to administer oaths, okay? So this could be, depending on what country you're in, different people. But lawyers, and sometimes I think in the US people at the post office can notarize this. So this is the final notarization stage, okay? You just have to find somebody who's willing to witness your signature and sign down there, and you're done, okay? So that's the legal aspect as far as I can make out. Now let's get into the actual details of the affidavit. Sorry, let me just go back. Okay, this was the first page, right? And then when we start, the first section will be your background and the overview of your targeting, okay? So your personal information, who are you, what's your profession, anything that's relevant, about your bio, your CV, your resume should go in here. And you should notice that, first of all, we have the sections, and then below every section, you've got different subsections. And what's important is that most courts want to have numbered paragraphs, and it has to be numbered consecutively, okay? So that's why these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 jump, from one section to the next, but go through the entire document. When you fill out this document, you just start typing here, and when you press enter to create a new paragraph, then a new number will get generated and all the numbers get adjusted accordingly, okay? So that's all automatic. Later on in the final draft. Oh, by the way, I've just realized I've made a mistake, because what I have uploaded to my website right now is just a PDF, okay? When I finished with this call, on the very same place, there will be an open office document, which is like a Word document, where you can actually type into these fields. So here you can't actually write, but I'll update the open office as well. So I'm just going to go through briefly through the different sections. This section number 2, and what's really important is that you keep these numbers, okay? This number and that number has to be identical among all the affidavits, okay? So the first section that pertains to your harassment is stalking. Here you can write down anything. What did you observe about stalking? Where were you stalked? Were you stalked in the supermarket? Were there any specific stalking rituals, like, for example, cars honking their horn when they drive past you? That happens over and over, or I don't know what, you get honked at by yellow cars or something, okay? The next section is elaborate street theater spectacles. That's harassment where they really put on a show for you. I would be very interested to see the type of theater, because usually these street theater spectacles are designed to be utterly ridiculous, okay? Totally ridiculous, so that if you tell somebody about it, they will not believe you, okay? That's the entire point. Now, the next bit is, stalking and harassment by special means. So, people can be on bikes, they can be in cars and so on. But what's also important to note, are these all private cars and unmarked cars, or are they actually service vehicles, public service vehicles, as police cars, fire engines, and so on? because both happens, but I would like you would have to testify of in your region who's involved. Is it just private people, or is the police involved as well, or the fire service? And then there could be many, many others. And sometimes people observe. So this included targeted messages means that the vans will have something written on them. You know, they literally drive in front of you with some big, you know, font on the back, and they flash their lights so that you notice what they're saying to you and stuff like that. And then also some people, believe it or not, are being harassed with helicopters. And my colleague Ramola, the journalist, is one of them. She gets literally escorted by helicopters when she, when she leaves the house. There's also stalking with drones. And the final section, always the last section, is other types of harassment that haven't been taken into account here. Okay? Now, this is really important. If there's something really extraordinary that pertains to stalking and harassment that doesn't fit into these sections here, in the above sections here, I ask you to please include it in this section, other. This is, anything else. However, if you have something that is a category in itself, and you are pretty sure that many, many other victims will have suffered the same type, then please send me an email and say, why don't you include this type of harassment in this section? So please add another subsection to this section, or add an entire section in its own right to take care of that, okay? So let me just quickly glance at the chat. Sorry, I'm going to return and talk about the other aspects. But before I do so, I would like to have a quick look of what people are saying. So I've asked people to please stay on topic today, because I really have to, it will take time to go through this. Okay, so already the first question is, do you want readings from us? Says Abused by Robert Bruce Johnson. Yes. So the way you should fill out this affidavit is that below every section you write in full sentences what has happened to you. Okay, and you try to be as succinct as possible, and as how to put it, as unemotional and as objective, and you just say this and this happened to me, and then below that paragraph you can say my proof for this is, and then you can say I've got meter readings, or my proof of that is a witness, and so on. Now, when you're compiling your own court case, you would say my proof for this statement I just made are meter readings. Here's a screenshot of the device, or here's a photograph, or here's a whatever, a printout of the meter readings. So you would include the proof, you would reference the proof. Now, if everybody who fills out the affidavits also sends me their detailed evidence, it will be impossible for me to go through that, okay? And it's also not necessary, because what I want from you is, first of all, a sworn statement that this actually really happens, and or happened to you. And I would like to have a feel, or be able to give a judge a feel of what sort of level of evidence you have, okay? But it's not going to be an endless tree whereby, someone starts a court case and then has to present their own evidence, and then they produce witness testimonies, and then, you have to get the evidence for all of those 100, witness testimonies in turn in greatest detail. The scale of these crimes and the staggering number of individual crimes committed against victims is so high that if we got into this detailed exercise, we would not finish. We will get nowhere. We would be in paralysis. So what I suggest you do is that you, for your own case, please collect meter readings. And then when you're filling out the affidavit, you can say, for example, I have got proof of being shot at with radioactivity, and I measured things like, I don't know what, 10,000 microsievert or whatever, at these and these times. And I have measurements from a Geiger counter to back that up. Or I didn't record the measurements from the Geiger counter, but I've seen it. It was in my hand. I have a witness that this happened, and so on. Okay, so that sort of stuff. I think for your own court case, it would be a really good idea to include screenshots. And I think for stuff that is really, how to put it, kind of where images really help, that's the injuries, you know. So if you say, I woke up and I had a massive scar across the back of my head, and people have sent me images like that on Twitter, please include the image in your affidavit if you don't mind, if you're happy to share it, okay? Because then for a judge to see that, oh my God, these people are claiming they woke up with scars, and here are the images of the scars and all the affidavits, that's pretty, you know, it's going to stick in their mind, and that sort of stuff. If you've got images of bruises and burns from microwave weapons, that's also very, very good. Also keep in mind that please don't include in this open office document the images at the highest resolution possible, because some digital cameras just produce, you know, 5 to 7 megabyte images. And if you include 5 or 10 of those, I will not be able to literally download the PDF that you generate from that. Okay, so you can look up how to reduce the resolution on your images such that you can still see it on a page when it's printed off, but it's not the highest resolution. Okay, so much about evidence. Okay, so now there are questions about why do these death squads even use these weapons. I'm not going to answer details about the crimes today because the focus is different. But to answer this particular one, it's because they're covert. You can kill somebody without leaving a trace. You can kill them in their own home, and no one will know where the shot came from. That's why, sadly. Okay, I have no idea what chemicals are being sprayed into that one home, and it's very, very hard to say. But for an affidavit, you can record that you think that chemicals are being sprayed into your home, or somehow being, you know, pumped into your home, and you experience chemical smells. That is very, very important. And actually, I should make a note that, you know, chemical scents should be included in the affidavit. I don't think I have taken care of them. Okay. So, okay, by the way, there are already statements about it will make you appear as an unreliable witness if you report this or report that. Actually, I don't buy into that at all. The entire point is to break the intelligence agency Stasi methods wide open. And the entire premise of that is that most of the crimes committed are ludicrous and utterly ridiculous. And the entire point is that when you report them, the idea is that they will label you as mad. Well, this has been the strategy for the last 100 years, and I'm sorry, this nonsense doesn't fly anymore. As I say in the affidavit draft and the explanations in the beginning, you are actively encouraged to include even the most ridiculous things that happen to you, as long as it really happened to you, okay? As long as this is what you saw. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have got a photograph where somebody literally painted their face as a clown and sat opposite me in a restaurant, okay? So if I say to somebody, you know, they went out of their way to paint their face white with big pink circles or green circles on their face just to harass me, it sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly the shit that the intelligence agencies do. So the photograph of the man and this harassment incident will most certainly be in my court case. And we know that it's all very, very stupid and nonsensical. And also, they are actively trying to humiliate victims. So there will be a lot of details that are actively humiliating, sexually humiliating, and so on. And, you know, I encourage you to have to just have the guts to just put it in writing that this is what they did to you. I mean, we know, for example, that all the female victims, and that's me included and all my colleagues included, we get raped electronically. I and all other of my colleagues have implants and chips in our genitals, in the rectal area, in the uterus, and they are being used to torture us. Okay, so if I felt embarrassed about that, I could never ever go up against the intelligence agencies and say that these sexually demeaning and denigrating and horrific crimes are being conducted only if we, you know, put this together and we just openly say what's being done, can we actually get these nutters to stop? So, oh yes, and the other thing that's very important, especially as regards your medical details and what has been done to you, and also personal, very personal details. One of the things I forgot to upload is the release form. So I should also include that, actually. So there will be a document where you can give permissions of how your affidavit can be used, okay? And there will be 2 or 3 categories. Number one is that the only people who can use your affidavit for court cases as kind of backup supporting evidence are myself and the women on my team. Okay, and who these women are, you can see on the jointinvestigation.org website. So this is option number one. You send an affidavit to us, and that is just for our use and just for use in our court cases, which means that we will print it off, we'll put it in our court bundles, and only the judge can read it. And if there are any references to that affidavit, we will ask that they will be made anonymously in court, so that in open court your name is not read out and so on. However, there I still ask you, I mean, you have to write your full name for the notarized affidavit, but also I ask you to name names, okay, as to the extent that you're comfortable. And that's very important because also it's about a criminal investigation. You know, we need to find out what type of people are involved. We know for sure that some lawyers, a lot of police officers, an awful lot of intelligence agents, the military and judges are involved in this, and doctors and psychiatrists and counselors and senators and congresspeople. So up and down, you can't name one person where you say, I think this person is involved in my targeting, and I won't believe you, because we know that all the way to the top, there are some people who are involved in this, okay? And I will be naming names, and all of my colleagues are naming names in the affidavit, and you should do the same, because it's also a lasting testimony for the record of these crimes being committed against us. So the permissions that will accompany the affidavit will be, first of all, just myself and my team. Now, there's no option of just giving it to me, because this is also a security issue, right? Everything that I have, my colleagues need to have, because otherwise, if I, you know, am pushed under a bus, as they, they do try to get rid of me, then this entire evidence is lost. So the first option is to send it only to my team and myself. And then the second option, we're thinking about having a medium where there will be a select few people that we give access to. So these are trusted contacts, but we would name them before we sign them up. So that would be a medium setting that we're still finalizing. And the final version is that you are happy with having these your affidavit be used by any court case ever conducted by victims, okay? Now that, I think that my affidavit will fall into that category. I will just make it public. But be aware that if you choose that option, then you will, we will have to require that you're happy with your affidavit being public and be uploaded to a website publicly so that anybody can see it. And that's because we do not have the capacity ourselves to, if a victim approaches us and says, I've got a court case, I would like some supporting affidavits, we do not have the manpower to check every last request if this is actually a valid one, or if people are lying to us, you know. I can't be chasing up lawyers somewhere in some part of the world, you know. I can't be making sure that somebody from, I don't know, Australia who claims that they've got a court case really have a lawyer, or somewhere else, you know, South Africa. This is a global problem, and what we're trying to do is really give people the means to fight this globally. Okay, so if we support each other with affidavits, if you want to support other court cases apart from the one of the 5 ladies I really work with daily and I can absolutely vouch for, then your affidavit has to tick the final option, which is a public affidavit. Okay, but you have this choice, and we will respect your choice, and you will have a release form, you will sign it, and we'll receive it, and we'll act accordingly. So that's our promise to you. Now, as you know, the entire email infrastructure and your computer and my computer, my colleagues' computers are entirely entirely at the mercy of the intelligence agencies, who I can tell you, because I've got proof for it, are roaming around my computer and everybody else's computer as if this was really just a public street. Okay, so be aware that as soon as you put something into writing, the intelligence agencies will know. Okay, even if you put it on writing on your computer. But if you're a real victim, you had your life so utterly turned upside down, and you had so every single aspect of your life invaded, that you'll probably most likely reach the same stage as me, where you just don't care. Okay, so if you reach that stage, then it will really assist other victims around the world if you can make your affidavit public. But then if you choose that option, the public option, please also be aware that any names you name will be public, which is fine, which is absolutely fine, because when you sign an affidavit and you say, this is the truth as I've seen it, and as I've experienced it, and as I know is to be true, as long as you say the truth, no one can, come after you for that in a court of law, because this is just your affidavit. If they did that, it would be intimidating a witness to crimes against humanity, which is a very grave offense indeed. So much about the permissions. Let me just quickly scan the other comments. So one of the things is that we are also aware that there are a lot of agents infiltrating the victim community. So when we are using your affidavit, we ourselves have to be, we might not use every affidavit that we get. And this doesn't mean that your evidence isn't valuable. It doesn't mean that we are ignoring you. All it means is that we either thought, hang on, this is a really dodgy affidavit, because believe me, when you make an open campaign like this, the first thing the intelligence agencies do is try to subvert you any way they can come up with. Okay, so this is number one. But number two is also that what we do not want to do, okay, we do not want to create a centralized system here. We are trying to launch class actions. We're genuinely trying, but we're not sure if we will manage on our own. And also, I'm totally against just having one big class action in every country, because then the intelligence agencies will just subvert that one and their job is done. It's much more difficult to do when you have many court cases, individual court cases, or small groups, small trusted groups. And the more cases you throw at the justice system, the higher the probability that one case will actually meet an honest judge. And believe me, they do exist. Okay, so please, let's not put all our eggs into one basket. And what I also encourage you to do is take this affidavit template, and if you don't like it at all, then just make your own template and get the people who you trust to back up your evidence. So this is more an idea to ignite an entire movement more than anything else. Okay, so you can have start your own affidavit collections, and also once a victim has compiled, an affidavit like that, they can recompile it or just copy and paste into another affidavit template really easily. So it should get easier and easier to get the evidence that you need to back up your personal case. Okay. But I also encourage you to think about what sort of offenses you would want to mention in court, and then for every type of offense, get people to back up your experience. Get other victims who have experienced the same thing to testify that indeed is going on. To give you an example, one extremely crazy and disconcerting thing that happened to me, and is happening to me personally, is that I have a laser surgery operation done on my spine in the neck. And I didn't know about it. I didn't see the scar for a very long time, but they put in either a chip or, as I suspect, something fancier, which is nanotechnology perhaps, or some other device. And what they are doing is that they are literally trying to deform my spine. And they're trying to do that by using this technology, which I think can be remote steered, and is then exerting some sort of pulling force on the vertebrae in my neck. This is excruciatingly painful and has been used in a targeted fashion before I went to Brussels 2 weeks ago. And they literally started to pull on my neck And I knew, because the timing was again to try to sabotage my trip to Brussels, I knew that this entire thing was entirely artificial, but at the time I didn't know what was going on. Now I went to Brussels, and there I actually was, I visited a dermatologist, the same dermatologist that my colleague Melanie Richan has visited, who certified the laser surgery scars on her body. So I didn't have to, start with Adam and Eve and explain everything. So I went there myself, and I said, I've got the same sort of problem like Melanie. I was illegally implanted. Could you please look for laser surgery scars? And he found the laser surgery scars on my neck. Now I have a written certificate saying, yes, indeed, I have been operated on the neck. I have no recollection of that happening. It wasn't with my consent. And then when I spoke to Melanie and I told her about this pulling action on my neck, she said, oh yes, I've got exactly the same thing. And she said, in fact, I'm in touch with another victim to whom they've done that for a couple of years. So my colleague has an ear chip, so she gets the entire audio harassment, them broadcasting their revolting, nonstop, death threats and disgusting messages to her. And she says, when they pulled on my neck every single time, they said through the ear chip, we are going to break your neck. And that's exactly what it feels like, by the way. And that's exactly the entire program, but it's deforming your vertebrae really slowly in the most painful and torturous manner. That's how psychopathic the intelligence agencies are. So what she said to me is, by the way, I didn't just experience the same thing. I also am in touch with another victim to whom they've done this for several years. And by now, he had to have an operation where he, first of all, removed that implant. And second of all, he had to have a titanium implant to stabilize his spine, because they had deformed it so much. So as soon as 3 people come together and testify to this technology being used on them, that's it. No one can claim that you're mad. And also, in the case of my colleague Melanie Richan, last week on the Techno Crime Fighters Forum, we have published the analysis results from X-ray spectroscopy conducted by a Swiss lab on an implant that has been taken out of her throat. And you can see all the details in that video. And that's that particular implant assembled itself. We know the patent. We know who manufactured it. It was Motorola, as it seems. And the entire implant is entirely, well, it's filled with little titanium fibers that look like under microscope, they look actually like worms in this sample. But under X-ray spectroscopy, we could see that it's titanium. So titanium fibers. Now that sort of stuff doesn't just spontaneously end up in a body. But once you understand how these metal fibers work, you can also find out how the sort of pulling action might be generated. For example, you can look up memory alloys on YouTube. I think this is what they call it, memory alloys. And then you can see how under heat, metal can change shape and can change shape back to a certain alignment that it was, first assembled under. So bit by bit, you can figure out how even this freakish technology works. And let me now, let me just scan briefly the comments if there's anything else, and then I want to get back to the template. Somebody says, do you know that all the Swiss judges are Freemasons? Are you aware of that? Yes, I'm not aware that all judges are Freemasons, and that's because, as I've been told, the Freemasons are still a boys-only club. So if you've got a female judge, she can hardly be a member of the Freemasons. I also know that there's this female version of this brainwash club. But one of the things I can tell you is I've appeared now before 3 judges. Okay, these were Judge Spencer, Judge Edith, and Judge Holgate in the High Court of London. And certainly Judge Spencer was absolutely shocked to hear about the crimes committed against me. And the way he acted was not corrupt at all. He seemed to be a man of integrity. And, I certainly think that there are judges who are very, very good, and we need them to stop these crimes against humanity. Also, Judge Edith, he was, I think he was put under pressure by somebody in the public gallery, as I kind of observed and suspected. And nevertheless, he stared down that person and, and said, no, we need to hear these sort of cases. That's what we do in the High Court. And I really appreciate that. So, I didn't have any reason to believe that what they did was corrupt. And both of them had the power to throw out my case. If they wanted to, behave nastily, they could have, but they didn't. So I'm not going to just say all judges are Freemasons and all judges are members of this crime cartel, because I don't actually think it's true. As a physicist and systems analyst, I'm also pretty certain it's not true. So what we are now trying to do is find the honest judges, okay, and find them and use them as a conduit to actually get back to real justice, not just the law, actual justice. So much about the Freemasons in the judiciary. Okay, so people report, and this is very important. So someone says it was a group effort, family, neighbors, ex-husband, and police. Yes, and let me get back to the affidavit, because one of the things I'm aware of, one of the things I'm aware of also is that the intelligence agencies and these criminal gangs, they don't just attack an individual, they attack entire families, and they attack entire communities. So let me share my screen again, and let me get back to the affidavit, because there's some things I wanted to say to you about that. And this is exactly about this aspect. So further down on the affidavit, so when you're finished with stalking, there's stuff like interference with post and deliveries, blah, 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 intrusive surveillance, involvement of neighbors, okay? So I was trying, also the affidavit draft is designed in a way where you start off with the most benign stuff that, a judge will not find it hard to believe that maybe somebody might have, reached into your post box and opened your mail or ripped it open. Okay, that's not hard to believe. Stalking is also not that hard to believe. Intrusive surveillance, there have been cases where people's homes have been bugged illegally and so on. So that's also not so hard to believe. Now, the corruption of your neighbors at first sounds incredible, but then again, that's exactly what the Stasi did. That's exactly what the Gestapo did. That's what every single intelligence agency in the world does first. Okay, they try to infiltrate, corrupt, and compromise and sign up the people around you. And this could be your neighbors, this could be co-workers in your job, it could even be friends, it could even be family members. And sometimes it turned out, for example, in the Stasi times, that it was spouses who were working for the intelligence agency. So nothing is impossible. Okay, and here's an entire section about things from your neighbors. Have they harassed you? Is there noise harassment? Did they break into your home? Do they survey you somehow? There's, for example, a lady who uploaded a YouTube video where she proved that her neighbor was pointing a camera from an upper room into her living room, and was filming her. So then you have also the sabotage of your car and assaults and traffic. Now, I get shot into, my head gets shot into every single time I drive my car. So you can record that sort of stuff. There's also attacks with visible lasers, attacks with directed energy weapons during driving and all that. Maybe they, vandalized your car, all that sort of stuff, but also dangerous driving. So Melanie and I, we were almost involved in a very, very bad accident because an agent literally on the motorway was trying to cause an accident, and I've witnessed that. Okay, maybe they also messed with your roadside assistance and so on. Okay, so that's this section. Then sabotage and assault traveling, that's more on planes. Oops, this is meant to be planes, not plans. Okay, so I have to change that. Okay, so there will be spelling mistakes in this, by the way, which I will correct over the coming weeks. But this section of, assaults traveling means everything long distance. So not just your local traffic in the car, but maybe public transport, coaches, trains, airplanes. Did they break into your hotel room and so on, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yes, and very important, please list all the foreign countries that you were assaulted in. That's very important because it's a jurisdiction issue, okay? So please give me a list of all the foreign countries. Yeah. And also note down if you were attacked on airplanes, actually ships, that's missing. I've just realized, because maybe you were attacked on a cruise or something like that, you know. And again, here you're in international space when you're on airplanes, you know, or if you're on a ship, and foreign countries, that also is very, very important. Then here's a section on home break-ins, you know, property damage and so on. Please read it and please have a good think of, is there any aspect of your experience that's not incorporated here? Then a large section on computers and telecommunication. And this includes the very, very common nuisance calls, you know, delayed text messages, or, you know, anything else, anything to do with telecommunication, all the way to really serious hacking, you know, hacking of your online banking, very serious. Did they steal money or did they target something else? But also things like targeted messages via TV and radio. Now, I think there's some parts of psychiatry who are trying very, very hard to label everybody who says that the TV speaks to them or the radio speaks to them as mad. And let me tell you that that is wrong, because the intelligence agencies, what they did with me is they manipulate your car radio, for example, and then they have their own DJs, which they hire to record fake radio shows. And then as the radio is playing, the manipulated radio at some point will switch in frequency, not to the actual radio station that the setting is, you know, for, but to another, maybe nearby broadcast from a van or a car, from the intelligence agents. Okay, and there they will broadcast their radio program. And then when it's finished, switch back to the normal, you know, radio broadcast. So this is extremely easy to do. And by now I had all sorts of things. After, for example, Ramola, my colleague Ramola, sent the memorandum to Donald Trump. My car radio blasted me with the words of memo to Donald Trump in my car as I just got in, you know, and stuff like that. So that happens all the time. And it's just as easy to put on fake TV shows, okay? Because all of this can be changed. And then one victim specifically asked me to ask the victims to say, to state if words or sentences used to harass via radio or TV are full sentences or short words or small words. Are they inserted between gaps in words? Can you see, you know, the lips of the actors move when they're saying that word, or can you not? Because depending on which of these cases it is, it might be a different type of technology used to create this effect. Okay, because at the end of the day, all this is it's a con, it's a trick to harass you and disconcert you. Okay, then there's a huge section on economic sabotage, and that is you losing your job, you know, or you're being mobbed at work, or your co-workers openly talking about your private life, mentioning details that they can't possibly know. Or I have one victim where her co-workers are actively talking about the torture of her torture with her implants. She's being burned with directed energy weapons, and her colleagues casually talk to each other about that, pretending like that's never gonna, you know, get back at them. Also, loss of income, very important, because the vast majority of victims, the entire purpose is to just destroy them financially. Okay, so please note that down. There's also a section further down when you can write down the exact financial loss you incurred and estimate that. Then I would like to draw your attention to the fact that there's something I call financial and administrative terrorism, and that is fake bills, fake charges, fake accusations that might lead to fines, you know, suddenly some summonings or administrative procedures that come out of nowhere that cause you a lot of hassle, or retrospective action against you, or some fake or timed court actions or threats of court actions and all that sort of stuff. Okay, if you've experienced here something that you think other people might have been exposed to, then please email contact@stop007.org and say, you know, I think it's really common that people get harassed by this or that. Okay, please, because it's really important we include these things as well. Okay, then now it's on to the disruption of your right to a private life and a family life. This is the disruption of your leisure time, your pursuits and hobbies. Could be anything. Again, infiltration or other types of sabotage and harassment. Please note that down. Very important, the interruption and sabotage of your family life. This can also be social life, time with family and friends. It also includes your family and friends sometimes acting very strange. Okay, this could be because they have been compromised or recruited by the intelligence agencies, but please, unless you have definite evidence, do not jump to the conclusion and start distrusting your family members, because there's also advanced neurotech, so neurotechnology, with which your family and friends, even if you've known them for years, can be deeply influenced. They can be made to be senselessly aggressive. They can be made to attack you physically. Okay, this is, for example, done by beaming a microwave pencil beam into their head and triggering certain glands in their brain, making them extremely aggressive in a way they cannot control. Okay, so do not be, I know it's upsetting, but do not be harmed or emotionally damaged by that sort of stuff. Just know that it could very well be that they just have been brutally violated with neurotechnology. Okay, so, but it's very important to write down anything strange, including personality changes. Actually, I should have a special special section on personality changes in family and friends, you know, of people who you know very well, because that's a telltale sign in itself. Then things like the destruction of marriages, targeted destruction, separation from your children, you know, of one way or another. Having your children taken from you is also very important. I mean, frankly, the entire topic of children should be, and marriages should be a separate section, frankly. I think I might up this. Sorry, the beeping is my Geiger counter. I just received a dose of radiation. Okay. Then very important, and I know that this is a touchy topic, but sexual harassment, sexual humiliation, and sexual assaults. Okay. It could be anything like sexually harassing text messages, or I, for example, had a live commentary on my sex life by strangers in the street. That also happens. It could also be that maybe you were attacked and raped. So classical rape means, you know, as people know rape to be. And the more advanced rape is no touch, so remote controlled via direct energy weapons, you know, shots to your genitals. Or if you have implants in your genitals, like my unlucky self, then you can also be raped remotely. Okay, things like forced orgasms, ejaculation, forced urination and defecation. That's also very common, sadly. There's a patent or device that can actually force urination and defecation remotely. Then also, because this is a big topic in the sexual assault category, satanic ritual abuse. Okay, people that they're agents and criminals are trying to tell the world that satanic ritual abuse doesn't exist, but the evidence is overwhelming. There's child sexual abuse with satanic themes, and there's satanic ritual abuse. So all of that, please, frankly, this should be an entire topic in itself as well, right? Because the abuse is so horrific. So maybe I should actually separate that out. Depending on the community responses, I might very well do that. So, okay, let me just make a note. Then the next part. I mean, most of this you can read yourself, but I want to, you know, for every section, just make a couple of comments. And now, family planning, reproduction, pregnancy, and birth. This is also very important because these stages are very personal, and also reproduction and birth are also to do with your family. So anybody attacking your reproductive organs might do that because they literally want to wipe out your lineage, or they want to wipe out your ethnicity. So when you're dealing with Nazi crimes, this sort of stuff happens all the time, I have to tell you, okay? So if you're one of these women who has suffered many, many miscarriages, you might think this is, you know, entirely biological, it's just unfortunate. But if you're also being attacked with directed energy weapons, or if you experience demonstrative stalking, unfortunately, it could also be as a result of the energy weapons. And if that's so, what that amounts to is actually murder of your unborn child. Okay, I'm not saying that to cause you distress. I'm saying that because if we can prove this in court, I mean, you will see as a mother, you understand more than anybody that people killing unborn children should be hounded and, frankly, my personal opinion, put to death. But we can only do that if we combine our evidence. Okay, so this section is not to open old wounds or cause distress. It is literally about getting damages for what has been done to you, what has been done to your unborn child. Also things like birth defects. Did you have directed energy weapon attacks during your pregnancy? You might have been attacked without even knowing. So if in a later stage of your life you are brutally attacked, or you're being demonstratively stalked and you have break-ins and you have birth defects in your children, then please write it down, because other people might be in your situation as well. And sadly, my impression is that doing experiments on children and causing damage to certain families is unfortunately part of this. Okay, then there's an entire section on children. Sorry, and I realized here the section numbering has been broken. So this is all both section 14. So as you can see, there are some problems to be ironed out. But the section on children is extremely important. And that's because many mothers of autistic children have written to me and said, I have the impression that my child is being targeted. And sadly, let me tell you that it is very common by these criminals to conduct experiments on autistic children because they cannot express themselves. So that's a way to cover up the crimes. And this makes it extremely serious, in my view. And I want you to write this down, because I want to stop these bastards. I want to hound them down. But I can't do that unless you actually give me the evidence and your testimony that this is going on. Also, my colleague, Melanie Richan, she has taken part in several scanning sessions for body implants. So you can use bug detectors to detect these body implants. And she reported to me that every single time a mother was attacked and said, I brought my child and I suspect that through me they might be attacked as well, the children were chipped as well. The children had implants. And also the children had the implants in exactly the same places as the adults. There's a certain pattern of chipping. I think it's called the body area network, that can be used to conduct experiments to torture people. And the children are typically assaulted as well. So this section is horrific, but then again, the crimes are horrific, so please write them down. Now, the section on physical symptoms. If you have physical symptoms that you think are not included here, please let me know. I was trying to catch as many as I could think of and as I have heard of. Okay, so there's a very long section listing everything. And again, the point is that if you just have random muscle twitches and cramps, that's not saying very much. However, if you've got systematic muscle twitches that can be used to harass you, and you combine the evidence with other people, also saying, after this date, this specific date, I started having muscle twitches, odd muscle twitches, then that stands up in court. Okay, so this is why, people, I say that if we all agree on this subsection numbering and we all fill out the same template, then we can actually validate each other's experiences. So please go through this, and if there's any aspect of your suffering that hasn't been taken care of here, that hasn't been included, please email me. Okay, so this is just the symptoms. Then there's an entire section on medical conditions and illnesses. There's also, if you think that you have pain in your body and the doctors tell you that it's a calcification or lipoma, please be aware that a lot of the time it seems to be the case that either through lack of knowledge or through hospital policy, people call little implants also calcifications and lipomas. Okay, so what you need to do is, if you have those, you might want to have your body scanned in the area with a bug detector, or a professional professional can measure these emissions, and it could actually be an implant. Now, directed energy weapons cause brain damage and stuff like that, speech impediments and other problems. I personally think it also triggers Alzheimer's and stuff like that, and brain damage. So please include that. Then infections, contaminations, and implants. If you have suspicious infections, or for example, infections that, say, really severe infections that make you bedbound when you have important events and it keeps happening, it could very well be that you've just been sprayed with a pathogen by some agent, so please include that. Also a big section on Morgellons and nanotechnology in your body. If you've suffered stuff like that, please include it here. I think, frankly, all of these should be sections on their own, like the entire Morgellons topic. But I'm trying to find the right balance. Then please include what type of medical scans you have. Okay, and if there are any type of medical scans that you found that help to prove what's going on, please email me and let me know if it's not on the list, okay? Because then I need to learn about them. Okay, so there's crime, classical crime, that you might experience. So what I mean here with this classical theft is when they literally break in and they steal, I don't know, a painting that's worth £500,000. Okay, that's pretty clear why they stole it. It might still be intelligence agency harassment if you think that there's no way that anybody would have known that the painting is there and it was stolen, and lots of other stuff happens to you along the way. Now, if they break into your home and they just rearrange things, that goes into a separate category, because that is not classical theft as we know it. That is intelligence agency harassment, Stasi style. And that goes, I think, in the very first somewhere. I have a section on home break-ins and unusual stuff, so please put that in there. So this is really all bog standard type of crime that you might have experienced, along with fancier versions. So when I say murder, I mean murder where, for example, the knife's still sticking out of somebody's back. There's a separate section on covert murder using directed energy weapons, but typically those get recorded as heart attacks, as strokes, and stuff like that. So unless you have, the police has recognized it as a murder, don't put it in this section, put it somewhere else further down. So the big section on directed energy weapons and radiation, be aware that the first section means radioactivity type of radiation specifically. This means measured with a Geiger counter, so alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. A separate type, which is electromagnetic radiation, okay, things like microwave radiation, goes into other categories. So typically, radioactivity, unless it's literally a nuclear bomb being set off, right, in your city square, radioactivity does not interfere with electronic equipment. But microwaves can. Okay, so this is the difference between this and that. If you have forgotten your school physics or you don't remember, you can literally look up the Wikipedia article on radioactivity and alpha, beta, and gamma radiation, and you will get a quick summary of what that is. Now, all the directed energy weapons, they can use particle beams, but a lot of the time they use microwave radiation. I also experienced, there's a video I've uploaded about audible and visible shots. These are electromagnetic pulses, so that's what I call with electromagnetic projectiles. I should call them pulses, really. And what I've experienced is that you can literally be sniped at with those things. That's a very, very small focused pulse. It can dent aluminium foil. It also, what they did is that they bruised me, but the size of the bruise was the size of the tip of a pencil. So that must have been literally a microwave pencil beam. And these sort of things like light flashes inside your eyes, for example, at night when you go to bed and you see light flashes, it could be a microwave pulse being flashed through your head, and your optical nerve is absorbing some of the energy, Okay. Pain and torture with directed energy weapons and radiation. By the way, we don't just have this much space, okay? So within a section, you can put as many paragraphs as you see fit. Okay, I hope you understand. You don't just have this much space, one line. No, this is just the section headings. Okay, so please write down everything. And then, okay, let me now fast forward. So the next one is, if you know where the attack is coming from, okay, the attack locations, are the attacks being launched from inside your home? For example, there are victims who had weapons put into the attic. Or do you think the attacks are coming from outside? Oops, this should be outside your home. Okay, not your home. Then also a lot of victims, myself included and my colleagues included, we are being attacked from neighbors. Please write it down. Also, if you know which neighbor, please write down their name if you're happy to do so. You also might be attacked from bags and rucksacks and stuff like that. And then there are other methods. Also, you might be attacked on public transport or from cars that are parked near you or driving by. That happens to me all the time. Attacks from drones, helicopters, or planes. Also be aware that even if there's a helicopter above your head or a plane, you might still be just shot at from somebody hiding in a bush or from a device that's actually planted in a parked car. So unless you're certain, you can indicate that I keep being followed around with drones and I'm being hit by drones, but please indicate why you're reaching the conclusion that the hits are coming from there, either because it's timed or you're in the middle of the field and there's nothing around you, or you're on top of a mountain or whatnot. Okay. The same with attacks from satellites. It's easy to conclude, oh, it's all just done with satellites, and some people are trying to put out that sort of thinking. However, we know for a fact Dr. Ronnie Kildee even published the military documents saying that the plan is to attack people from neighboring properties and from cars. Okay, so for example, the company Diehl and Rheinmetall, the two fused, and their advertising material includes directed energy weapons put in car doors and put into the, in suitcases that you can put into the backs of cars and so on. So don't just assume it's all the satellites, Okay. If you have any measurements, I think I should expand this section. You can note down what type of device you used and what sort of measurement results you got. Okay, so this section needs expanding. And you can also please inform me what sort of measurements you conducted so that I can fill this in, so that we can compare, like with like measurements. Okay, then a very, very, very big topic is voice to skull. Okay, so voice to skull, there's still some, research being done into, reverse engineering to find out how it's done. And there are many ways you can have voices projected into your head. It could be a focused audio beam. It could be a microwave beam. It could be something like a chip in your ear canal. Okay, it could be something else put into your ear that's receiving, a small antenna. Can even be hidden under your skin, in your tissue. Everything can be done with laser surgery, honestly. So it's most certainly, I and no one else is ever going to say, just because you hear voices, you're mad. Okay, that is not what this is about. What it is for you to state, do you have tinnitus? This could be, literally the little ear chip just emitting a tone inside your ear nonstop to try to drive you crazy. Do you have voice to skull events and torture? What sort of, describe the voice to skull that you are receiving? What's the nature of the tones or sounds or voices that you suddenly hear? This entire section needs expanding because the topic is so vast, but also describe the psychological and physical damage from voice to skull torture, because that's the entire point. They're trying to damage you. Okay. And also please include quotes from voice to skull torture, because it's about proving to judge how sick in the head the intelligence agents are. And what I heard is that if you're an ethnic minority, there will be racial slurs, racial denigration. If you're a woman or even a man, there will be sexually denigrating comments made to you, horrific stuff, death threats, oh God, everything you can imagine. Okay. And it's typically being pumped into people's heads, into their ears, non-stop, 24/7. And I really want the judge to just, take in what sort of crap people have to listen to, and in this torture. Okay. So do not be shy, and do not think that anybody is going to read these quotes and think you have said that or you just made it up. No, it's what they have made up and what they have said. Now here, there should be a page break here because there's a separate section on image to skull. So the more advanced version of voice to skull is having entire movies beamed to your head. That might be surprising to people who don't know the patterns and don't know the technology, but I have experienced that. Melanie has experienced that, and many others as well. And you could have, anything from an image being beamed into your mind to entire movies that are just playing out dispassionately. Some people have black and white movies, of parading Nazis broadcast into your skull. And what that is like, to give you an idea, if you've never experienced it, it's like you go to bed at night, you close your eyes, and it's almost like the back of your eyelids is a movie theater. It's just much more in your brain. And it could be done through brain chips. It can be done through eye implants and a million other things, So do not be shy to report about this. And again, if it's a video to skull sort of scenario, if you literally get stuff like that, do not be shy to report about it. But the most important thing is that it has to be true. You have to be able to stand up in a court and, without showing, patterns of lying. You have to be able to repeat what you've just written here. So please don't make stuff up. But if you have genuinely experienced it, please do write it down, because it doesn't matter how crazy it is, what they've played out in these movies. It's about them. So now it's about analyzing their psychopathy and their psychopathic habits and methods, So please write it down in greatest detail. Now there's also the terminology, because depending on what military document you read, so there's different terms being bandied around. There's voice to skull, there's also synthetic telepathy and remote neural monitoring, and oh gosh, I just always get confused. It's one just big blur for me. I'll try to brush up the exact terminology for the final draft, but what I have done here is voice to skull is literally just that. You hear voices. Synthetic telepathy I use to denote things like subliminal suggestion, involuntary hypnosis, and other things that are passed into your head without you actually hearing an audible voice. Okay, I hope that's clear here. And there's many ways to do that. This entire category of forced thoughts and implanted thoughts, that actually there's technology to do that. False or implanted memories, induced emotions like anger, aggression. Again, it could be directed energy weapons, or it could be something more sophisticated using chips, brain chips, and so on. And there's also a way to record vocalized speech. This is vocalized speech. Hang on. I think the section continues. Yes. There's also a way to record non-vocalized speech, stuff that you think, but you don't actually say. And I put that into the category of remote neural monitoring, even though it's actually synthetic telepathy. Okay. I think what's missing here is a section on forced speech, because there's also a way to force you to say certain things that you don't want to say. There's a technology for that as well. Okay, now I'm going to move a bit faster, because there's the entire section on remote control and biorobotization. So this is your, your muscles being triggered remotely, entire limbs, hands and feet moving against your will, facial expressions, and your eyes moving around without you wanting to do that, control of your spine and back and neck and all that. It's even a way to remote control your heartbeat and your breathing. It's very freakish when that happens to you. So they did both to me. Again, I've just done it twice. So remote control of urination and defecation. There's the forced urination and defecation already appeared, so I have to tidy that up. And then also people reported having the feeling that somebody is touching them without anybody being there. That's also a technology that exists, and there's a way to force smell and taste, a certain smell and taste experiences onto you by controlling your brain. Okay, so please write all that down. And this draft is so extensive because the average victim will have most of these or a large number of these, And basically, I've done most of the work for you by just writing this down. So the idea is that all you have to do is actually fill out the different sections. Now, this section is all about the permanent damage that you suffered as a result, because yes, permanent damage, they call them non-lethal weapons, but actually they should call them degenerative weapons and neurodegenerative weapons, because they actually do cause gradual damage. I might jiggle the actual section ordering around, okay, so please don't hold on to these numbers right now, only in the final draft. But what's also very important is to look out for and record the attacks on your family and friends, okay? Because in my experience, even if they don't admit it or if they don't know it, they might be attacked. And also your family, friends, and others in your environment might actually be murdered. So this could be done with covert weapons, heart attacks, strokes, unusually timed deaths, and so on, car accidents, poisonings, everything. And please, if you're a victim, it's very important you write this down, okay? Again, this section needs expanding because it's quite serious. There's also attacks on pets. These programs try to destroy everything you love, in my experience. So if you love your pets, they might even attack your pets, cause them illnesses, and kill them. Also, these terror campaigns might have forced you to move house, okay? Typically, victims experience that even if they move house or if they change country, the harassment continues, like in my case, for example. Nevertheless, you should write down if this campaign, this terror program, actually forced you to relocate, to break up your social network, the costs you incurred moving house, and all that, please write that down. Yes, now the targeted interfering and steering of life might sound strange, but we do have evidence that the entire, what to me looks like entire life steering teams, where your entire life is loaded into this program, and they try to control everything. What job you take, who becomes your partner, where your children go to school, what their hobbies are, what their interests will be. It's the entire purpose of this is utter and ultimate control of your life. So if you have evidence of multi-generational targeting or anything that might be called, long-term steering of your life, please write it down. Yeah, my favorite category, agent operations, infiltration, and sabotage. Here, I want you to name names because these are the criminals. This includes online trolls. Please name the accounts because we can track them down. Also, are there any infiltrators or saboteurs? I have to tidy this section up, but it's this sort of information that I want from you. Can you list them? Can you name them? Were there any disinfo agents put into your life to disrupt you, to mislead you, to delay you, and so on? Were there any attempts to break up your self-help groups by just putting in fakes who are then causing hassle and behaving oddly or trying to discredit you? Did they do any slander campaigns in your life? And were you involved in any entrapment operations or any of these things? Were they trying to induce suicides? Actually, assassination attempts, suicides and murder, I think should also be a separate category, and I think they are somewhere further down. Okay, so signs and symbolisms. This is where usually the psychiatrists try to label you as mad when you say, oh, all these people, they are just, they're running around with these funny symbols, and there are all these symbols for death and all these, symbols of Satan everywhere around me. No, you're not mad. Probably you're just dealing with a bunch of intelligence agencies and their recruits who as far as I can tell, are actively being brainwashed with Freemasonry, with Illuminati symbols and Satanistic symbols, which, by the way, are all just fronts for the mafia, okay, for organized crime. But they all have their internal cartel signals and their signs, and they will not just flash them in your face, they will also exchange messages amongst themselves, you know. So this might be signaling towards you. It might also be signaling towards each other as a communication tool, you know. So please, anything you notice, write that down. Did you get any messages? You know, this is very common, related to violence or death or murder or whatnot. You know, please write it down. Again, it's because we're trying to spot the general pattern. Whoops, here I see that I've already, I think, passed the section on measurements, so that will be merged with the other section. Yes, please also write down what protective measures you had to take. For example, last night I slept in my bathtub because I am being shot into non-stop here in Zurich by Swiss intelligence. I am going to bed listening to the pat-off shots bouncing off my shielding. And sometimes, because shielding can also become a resonant cavity, it gets so bad I have to sleep in the bathtub to be entirely surrounded by metal, and then pull metal foil over myself and entirely wrap myself. So this is how I slept last night. But any sort of shielding measures you had to take, please write down what worked, and write down the sort of hassle you have to go through just to live your life. Okay, so that's what this is about. And also the type of shielding that worked for you also indicates what sort of technology they used, okay? Now, very important that you also start writing down what sort of costs did you incur through the targeting, through this bullshit program by the intelligence agencies. Your medical costs, the costs for testing, you know, the cost of buying measuring devices, traveling expenses, loss in your earnings, and anything else. Okay, damage to your property, I think, should also be a separate section. Your damage to your property, damage to your car, you know, all this stuff. Please write it down. And again, this section will be expanded based on the feedback from the community. Then now we're onto the sections with regards to official dishonesty that pertains to the entire dodgy shenanigans that's going on, okay? Did you experience any dishonesty and sabotage by professionals? Did you experience fraud? Did they falsify documents or destroy or steal documents? Did you get an insurance to refuse an insurance company to refuse you cover, or you know, are they doubled the damages or whatnot? So, you know, please help me finalize this section. And then we're on to going into individual professions, you know, and individual types of official dishonesty. So did they steal from you? Did they send you fraudulent bills or fraudulent? Oh, by the way, that's very important. Are you aware of any fraudulent life insurances in your name? You know, because there might be some. It has come to our attention that sometimes fraudulent life insurances are drawn up in the name of the victim, so that if the victim is murdered, these criminals get a payout, you know. Also, it could be that you are featuring as a board member on some company, and again, the idea is that you might have some life insurance, so you might run fraudulently as the CEO of some company, and they put they took out life insurance on you as a CEO, all of this fraudulently. So if you die, the company gets a payout, you know, for the loss they incurred because the CEO isn't around anymore. By the way, did you also, you know, did they somehow obtain your property through blackmail or any such thing? You know, please, if you've any experience in this section, tell me. And that's because actually the entire property market and fraud and criminal activity with properties is also a big part of this, as far as I can tell. So please help me finalize that. And now, with regards to special professions, did you have anything dodgy happening with your medical doctors? You know, do you have difficulties finding doctors, or was there any strangeness in the way you were treated? You know, please write it down. Were there any errors made with the medication that was prescribed, and so on? Also, if psychiatrists and psychologists gave you nonsense and labeled you as mad, okay, even though you're reporting military technology, please write it down. All the misdiagnoses, please name the doctor. You know, any forced psychiatric testing. Psychiatry is a pseudoscience, and psychiatrists have no idea about physics, in my experience, and most certainly do not know the first thing about military technology. So it could be that they're utterly clueless, right? Or it could be because they're corrupt criminals. Either way, please write down what they did. Depending on the gravity of their offenses, we can figure out if they are crooks or just clueless. Now, also the police, it's very well known that the police ignores victims. The police actively tries to section them or get them involved in entrapment operations, like it happened, for example, in France with Frédéric Laroche near Grenoble. And also as it happened with Karen Melton Stewart, you know, in Florida and elsewhere, the police are actively trying to harm victims, you know, because, and why is that? It's because this organized crime cartel has put the police into deep capture. So this is not unheard of. The same with the military and military police. Did you experience any nonsense? For example, my colleague, Dr. Melissa Black, she's being maimed and mutilated by an Air Force veteran called Randall Webster. She is has been for absolutely decades being tortured by this guy, and the police refused to arrest him. Did you get any sort of odd behavior or dodgy behavior from lawyers or from judges? You know, was there any sabotage of your court case or any perverting of the course of justice? Please write it down in this section. And was there any other violation of your human rights? In this section, please state, just in summary, the violations of every single one of your human rights, because I think a judge should see how many of these fundamental human rights are being violated by for victims, you know. Also, very important, this section entitled Perpetrators and Dying Declaration, because it is a sad fact that the intelligence agencies are trying to kill us. The dying declaration is when you think you might not make it to court, or just in case. So this section is you name the individuals by name, and you say, because I think I will be murdered before I make it to court, I state that to the best of my knowledge and belief and experience and so on, the people who are doing this to me are so and so and so. Okay, these are the people, the phone numbers, the car numbers, the addresses involved, the businesses involved in institutions and so on. And then this section you should sign and date separately. That's your dying declaration. Okay, and the idea is that this section can actually be used by itself. And the entire idea of a dying declaration is that somebody who thinks that they are dying, they have no incentive to lie, you know. So depending on the jurisdiction, the dying declaration might be recognized or might not be. Nevertheless, it is extremely important that in one place you write down who you think the main perpetrators are. Okay. This is very, very important. So I ask you to fill that in. And finally, I would like you to put in quotes that might be used to bring home to a judge what's being done to you. So, for example, the voice to skull quotes, you know, list here the best of, or the most abusive, you know, or the most shocking. Also real life quotes by officials, professionals, or family and friends. And these real life quotes are intended to really give a judge, who's also a human being at the end of the day, an actual insight into the sort of abuse you get, but also, you know, the howling injustice or howling arrogance and what's it called, depraved indifference by officials, you know. So those sentences that really stick in your mind, just write them down, you know, and let us all know the sort of injustices that you've suffered, you know, also verbally. And then finally, I have a very, very long section where I ask you to specifically name or list in the summary form the denial of help, because so far the experience of the victims of the intelligence agencies and this sort of Holocaust program is that absolutely everybody denies them help. And this is your spouse or partner because they can't believe it, your family because they can't believe it, your friends because they can't come to terms with it, your colleagues or other social institutions, you know, hospitals, doctors, and so on and so on. Please list it here specifically, you know, and this could be everything all the way up to the UN. And then finally, just write down what sort of self-help you had to undertake. So did you found or join a victim support group? Did you do any public interest work that includes websites and documentation and outreach and so on? And do you have you founded any groups and so on? Okay, and then finally you can write your conclusions. What are your conclusions about this program? You know, I've things like, well, I conclude that this is something utterly insane and it's going to, you know, devour the world or something. Your personal conclusions, and then you're done. You signed a statement of truth, witnessed. So you don't sign it now, sign it before witness, you know, a qualified witness. And then once you're done, send me the result. And then when I release the final affidavit draft, I will also give you instructions of how you can send it to me. So this was a very, very long introduction, but it's meant to guide you through it. What you have to know is that, first of all, this is a draft. It contains so many pages because every victim will have so many offenses committed against them, okay? And also realize that by writing all these pages for you, I have done a lot of the work for you. Also know that you don't have to fill out every section. So if a section doesn't apply to you, you just leave it empty or you say not applicable, okay? What I really want from you is to go through this and tell me if there's anything missing, any big topic that I have missed. And please, please do not send me the filled out affidavit yet, because this draft is not the final version. Do not send me anything apart from text, actual text. No documents, no evidence. Don't send me anything at this stage. No affidavits. Only send me emails where you say, look, this section is missing. Include it. Okay. So I hope this helps. All the people who are new to this and are listening to this with their mouth wide open, I can tell you that all of these things are actually going on. They're going on in every single country. There are thousands of victims, and the victims most of the time don't know what the hell to do. Okay, so also, if you're not a victim and you say, I can't believe that this is happening, let me tell you, the world doesn't give a damn about what you can or cannot believe. This is something I had to learn myself. And finally, it might be that you're a victim and you're only just now figuring out what's happening to you. You know, doesn't matter. Take your time, have a look. Do any of these categories apply to you? You know, if they do, just have the courage to fill them out. Okay, so this is it for now. Oh, by the way, let me just have a glance at the actual the comment section. So there are some new comments. Let me briefly scan it. Okay, so there's still some conversations here. Now, I can't advise you what are the best cameras, what are the best devices to collect evidence. I really can't do that here. Okay, so there's a lot of comments about just statements. Let me find all the questions. Okay, so let me just do a search for the question mark. And let's see. Why do they target us? Because it's a global Holocaust and they can make money off it. I think that's it. Okay. Okay. Okay, sorry, there's still these private conversations in the chat, so I'm trying to find the actual questions. Are there any questions about the affidavit draft? Let me go through. Oh dear, it's so hard to actually find the genuine questions if people misuse the forum. Okay, so let me see the final thing. So, okay, any genuine questions pertaining to the affidavit draft as I've just presented it, please write it in the chat right now. Write it in the chat because I can't read through all the stuff that people have been posting. So write your question again if it hasn't been answered. I'll give you a couple more minutes. And unless something is coming up here, write it in an email to me. My email is contact@stop007.org. You will also find it in the beginning of the affidavit draft. Also, if you have legal expertise and you think that the way the legal bits of the affidavit are drawn up are not fit for court, also include it, please. Okay, so here are some questions. Are you saying all these kinds of experiences diagnosed as schizophrenia are false? Yes, I think a lot of them are. I think a lot of them are. There are some people who doubt that schizophrenia even exists because there are so many people being assaulted with military technology. It could very well be that these people are all implanted or all being attacked. Do you find certain geographical areas are attached more than, probably what you mean is are attacked more than others? I don't know yet because I haven't got the global view. One of the things I know is that most countries are attacked. I don't think there's a single country where people can flee to. I'm not aware of one where they are totally left in peace. Maybe there's somewhere on this planet. Maybe if you're in a cave somewhere in the Himalayas, you're safe. I think somebody said to me that Iceland, no one is aware of victims from Iceland, but this could be either because, ignore the Geiger counter, it could be because there literally aren't any, and Iceland is one of those very social and closely knit communities that are countries where people don't do this sort of Nazi bullshit. I would hope, in my heart, I hope that places like that exist. Or it could be that there are so few people that they didn't actually make their way through to me to catch my attention. Okay, otherwise, I know for sure that the entirety of Europe and the US is affected. I'm not going to answer questions about how the weapons work because I don't have time, and that's not it. Are you likely to be implanted while in hospital? Yes, sadly, yes. Also, I think it was an FBI agent who said literally to Dr. Millicent Black to her face that people are implanted after car accidents in the ambulance and in hospitals. That comment, I think, applied to the US, but I suspect that Europe isn't any different. I was also implanted in hospital, I think, and not just in hospital. I also got evidence that they broke into my flat. For example, there's an image of a scar on my navel that must have happened either in this flat or in a hotel room where I was, and there's an implant put in there, and it's used to torture me. Okay, so. Sorry, let me just go slowly because suddenly there are a bunch of comments. Okay, so here somebody says the Moors murders incident covered in the Techno Crime Fighters forum is very relevant. I think this guy is referring to Techno Crime Fighters forum episode 23 or something, one of these. Yes, 23. And there I mentioned the Moors murders and the Soham murders in the UK. And this person says there are occult ceremonies going on at the same time. Children murdered. Police interviewed occultists. Yes. And actually, I personally think the entire section on satanic ritual abuse and satanic bullcrap and this sort of Illuminati, Freemason Scientology, whatever you want to call it, criminality and brainwash has to be massively expanded because it is one of the biggest programs. My personal view is that what used to be communist brainwash is now satanic brainwash, you know, or Masonic brainwash, but it's just the same thing with different corporate branding. Okay. Okay, so people pointing out that they feel that they have been a target for a very long time, but they only figured it out recently. Yes, the same thing happened to me as well. And also, I should say that these are crimes against humanity, and there is no limitation period, as in a legal bar on what sort of claims you can advance in a court of law. And therefore, I encourage you to include everything, everything that you think is relevant. Actually, I should have a section on historic abuse as well. If you think it goes back to your childhood, or if you think that actually historic and generational. Oh, sorry. Let me just block this call because I'm still online. So if you have anything that you think is a generational type of targeting, so your parents or grandparents already on a blacklist, say on a communist blacklist, like in my case, because they didn't want to be communist or didn't want to kill people, or some other reason, there should be a section on historic and generational abuse. And it's not ridiculous to say, you know, I think I've been a victim since childhood. I think it's rather common, you know. Okay. When will this be used? This will be used as quickly as possible. We're trying to move to court cases this autumn. Also, I should say, what is the time frame for collecting these affidavits? Frankly, because the writing, the stuff, takes so much time. If you really want to write up every aspect of your targeting, you will be writing for a long time. But don't be discouraged. You know, start with bullet points in each section, and then fill it in as you go along. You know, later make full sentences out of that. But the time frame is to have this or have the first affidavits roll in within a month or two, and start using them within a month or two. Okay, that's the time frame. But the idea is to use it as quickly as possible. And then for how long will this be used? Well, for as long as we need to investigate these crimes against humanity, you know. Okay, so good God, there's some really good questions here. So let me just go slowly. Okay, what physical and mental permanent damage do you have? Well, I'm not going to go into my personal detail, but you can look at the affidavit and see what sort of damage you can have, or you can report. And if there's anything missing that you think applies to you, please email me. Okay. Somebody says the banksters are loving the fact you think you need an implant, Catherine. Oh, I'm sorry, but I can tell you I have measured my implants, okay? I have measured my implants. I've got a doctor's note about the laser surgery, you know. I can feel the implants. And by the way, the people who want to tell you that implants are not involved are very interesting, because as soon as you have an implant in your body and you can prove it, it's a home run in court. If no one can explain how this thing got into you, and there's no surgery that you ever agreed to, you know, it's military technology. And the people who are in the dock are the intelligence agencies, okay? Because somehow, by some means, you know, there seems to be a program that is putting military technology into people without consent. So who could that possibly be? You know, if the intelligence agencies didn't do it themselves, then why the F haven't they done something about it, given that it turned into such an epidemic? Either way, this is terrorism, and they're in court. So implants are actually a smoking gun evidence, okay? So the people who tell you that you shouldn't look for implants, in my view, are really trying to derail you. What I'm saying is, to collect evidence, please visit a dermatologist if you think that you have implants, and ask him specifically to look for laser surgery scars with a magnifying glass. Okay, so that's very important. Second of all, get a bug detector. There's one I recommend where you can scan yourself. Okay, But also we are organizing scanning sessions that are even more, reliable and professional to have victims scanned for these implants specifically. And I'm telling you, my experience is that I think all of my colleagues are implanted. I'm certainly implanted. Melanie has evidence for it. I have evidence for it. Dr. Melissa Black has evidence for it. My colleague Ramola has scanned herself literally in front of my eyes and found the chip that's implanted on the back of her head on the same place, in the same place as my chip. Yeah. And so we are fairly confident that implants are a really, really big thing. In fact, nanotechnology is an even bigger thing. Okay. Okay, so somebody says, how to prove a laser attack. I've woken up with the fine precision tramline scar on my face. It could be a laser attack, or it could be that somebody anesthetized you at night and you actually have an implant, under your skin. You should scan yourself. The involvement of ambulance drivers here in the UK is huge and understated, as bad as the police. Yes, and in fact, maybe I should have a special section on ambulance staff, because I do have a section on police. I think you should also include it under the section doctors in the affidavit draft. Is it neighbors mostly? I don't think it's just neighbors. I don't think it's just neighbors, but neighbors are involved as far as I can tell. Do you think we'll have perps leaving? Oops. Damn, I lost the thing. Good God. Oh my God, the chat is so ridiculously hard to search. It's unbelievable. Let me scroll down, because people posted a bunch of things. Do you think we will have perps leaving false information? Yes. We'll have false testimonies, and this is why it has to be notarized. This is why also there's this compulsion to stand up in court and, actually be willing to testify in court. So I'm trying to weed out all the perps, and in the end, everybody has to make their own decision about which affidavits to use. So that's the thing. Okay. No question that foster care system is riddled with organized MK Ultra abuse of children. The perps even taunted me. What could I do about this? Well, you can testify, and maybe I should also have the care system as a separate section on this. Let me know what you think. My question is about your interpretation of high treason. Is there a wider definition as what I find refers to a threat against the crown? Someone microwaving my balls doesn't threaten the crown. No, actually it does. And that's because what this shapes up to be is a systematic Holocaust around the world that is entirely, the methods are identical. So when you have a large-scale attack with military weapons against the indigenous population, which has to be done by the intelligence agencies themselves of the country, because if, for example, if it weren't your intelligence agency attacking you, why the hell are they not stopping it? It's their job, right? It's terrorism on an absolutely gigantic scale. So it's pretty clear that the intelligence agencies of your country are involved. Now, when the intelligence agencies decide that they want to run a Holocaust of their own population, it is high treason, okay? Because it's destabilizing the democracy itself. So, that's why. Sorry, I get called by every person right now. So this is how it fits in. If it was just your case, it would not be high treason, right? It would be whatever it is. But if it's an entire country and, a large fraction of people in the country, and people in key positions being attacked, then that's very, it is. This program itself is high treason against democracy, and even against the crown, as I've pointed out in one of the Techno Crime Fighters forums, because the royal families will be attacked as well. Okay. Do you think this is related to the Cuba embassy attacks? Well, they certainly used very similar technology, so it's all one big, program. Okay. Okay, numbers and specific dates are big with them. Yes, that's true. And actually, I should maybe point out that specific dates should be noted down in the affidavit. If you think that there's some sort of, ritualistic aspect to say a death of somebody on a certain day, please write it down. Okay, there are people who are not interested in going to court. That's fine. They say that the Rothschild justice system is no justice. Well, yes, I can see the problem, but it's also the only justice system we have. So if anything, we should just start, working the system and recapturing it, as I say. Why don't you want to have the evidence? It's because I can't go through all the evidence myself. I mean, you should have the evidence for your court case. What I needed first is your affidavit, okay? And also the evidence could be extensive. And as I explained in the beginning, if it's just as simple as a photograph or, a photograph of measurements, if you can include a low resolution photograph in your affidavit so that the PDF file doesn't become, several gigabytes, then do. But people also have things like video evidence and other stuff, and entire, doctor testimonies. And I can't just collect all this paperwork. So what I want from you is that in the affidavit you say, I have got a doctor's note saying I've got scars or something, but please don't include the doctor's note because I can't process all that. Okay. Canal deaths in Manchester. Research this. Intelligence agencies involved in these mysterious deaths. Over 60 young men drowned in canals in Manchester. Same culling program. Yes, I think that very well might be the case. Okay, they say, but you realize what that means. They keep their big tech secret, Catherine. Yes, I do. I do understand that. However, I'm also a high energy physicist, a particle physicist, right? And I'm a data analyst. And I know that you can find out how even classified tech works if you just talk to enough victims. And that's because finding out how stuff works that you don't know exists or don't know how it works is the very job of science. That's what we did at CERN, on the big experiments where I was involved. There it is nature, not an organized crime cartel at work, thank goodness. But we don't know how nature works. We don't know what technology or what processes nature might have installed for us in a certain energy region that we haven't probed before. So I know how to figure out what's going on when I don't know what's going on. Okay, so that was my job, and that's my job nevertheless. So it doesn't matter. These people can, classify as much as they like. When we have so many victims coming forward publicly, they can stuff their classification. That's my view. What did your doctor say to you about implants? I think a lot of doctors will claim that they don't exist. And as I pointed out, they will claim that they are calcifications or lipomas. However, I have to emphasize that a lot of doctors are clueless about implants because they have been classified military technology for a long time. And some doctors lie. So, but you can get honest doctors. And if they testify, for example, that they can see small things on your x-rays and so on, or they can see laser surgery scars, that stands up in court. Catherine, you don't need implants. It's nanoparticles. They move them around in your bodies, in your body. Yes, very well could be the case, but I also have laser surgery scars, and I also have implants I can feel. So actually, I can feel the lumps. So, have you ruled out extraterrestrials or demons? If so, why? Yes, I have, and it's because I'm a physicist. I don't buy into bullshit. Okay, so I'm scanning through. I really have to wrap this up. Nanobiosensors, hang on, oh God, I lost the thing again. Okay, nanobiosensors, how they affect the body muscles, mainly in fingertips, so they can know what you're holding when you turn a camera on. Yes, nanobiosensors, I'm pretty sure all this stuff and stuff that I don't even know about exists, but we'll find out. Okay, guys, so let me see. Any questions I haven't answered, you will have to send via email. Are they using satellites and cell phone towers? Companies like Northrop Grumman and Raytheon. Yes, 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 but not just all those. Okay, they also use mobile devices. Um, um, You will probably be allowed publicity by the banksters, Catherine, seeing as you promote the implant agenda. I am sorry, there's no implant agenda as far as I'm concerned. I have got implants in my body, which I really would like to have taken out. And people had implants taken out. Okay. I also know that there's nanotechnology, and there are at the moment very expensive tests for nanotechnology. But Yes, but implants do exist, and nanotechnology is also involved. On your site, under court cases and evidence, there's an image of your navel. This is not very comprehensive. Are you going to expand this section with more concrete proof? Yes, I will. But by the way, I don't have to prove it to you. I just have to prove it to a court of law. So if you don't trust me and all the videos that my colleagues and I put out there, but I will also upload more evidence. If you go to my canal at Stop 007, you will see much more evidence where I scan myself for the implants. I think the playlist is called Detecting Nazi Implants, and so on. Okay. Somebody says I saw an X-ray of my shoulder. All the white nodules under my skin was eye-opening. Yes, I think some implants certainly can be seen, and X-rays is one of those methods. And then why do your neighbors attack you, you think? Well, I think because they're paid a lot of money. And depending on which scale you're at, the business plan differs. So the people on the ground will be paid. They might just have, a hatred towards you as a neighbor, or it might be just psychopathic individuals. Or they might be paid a lot, they might be intimidated, they might be scared for their life. Further up, people are making fraudulent life insurance schemes on victims and so on, or they might want their property, they might want to move in. And then at the highest level, people might want to implode your country, and that's where the high treason comes in. Okay. Okay. Why do I think I'm being targeted? I have no idea. I think I'm just part of this program. I think they target anybody with any sort of brain independence and integrity, or just for the sheer fun of it, or just for your body organs, or a million other reasons. Okay, so I think I've answered all those questions. Yeah. Let's see, there's still messages being posted, but I'm not seeing any questions. So what I'll say is I will wrap it up now. So I thank you to absolutely everybody in the chat for listening. I really apologize for the delay. I'm very, very sorry. Also, what you will see hopefully tonight is I will upload the open office document, not just what you have right now on my website is the PDF, but there will be an open office document where you can type in yourself. If you don't know what open office is, or LibreOffice, whatever it's called, then just Google it. It's like Word, okay, like Microsoft Word, but it's free. It's free, and it looks the same, and it works the same, but it's totally free. So you're not tied to the Windows operating system. You can also install it on Linux and on anything else, and it's just free. So I'm going for the free version. I think you should be able to open OpenOffice in Word, although I'm not sure. If you can't, I encourage you, just install OpenOffice. Honestly, it will revolutionize your life. So this is all what will come. And as I said, this is not the final version. This is a version, and I ask you, please work with me to improve this. I need your input to, make this good for you, make it usable for you, and make it useful for you. So please, please, please work with me. Do send me an email. And if you send me an email, please be brief. Okay, just say, I want this section for this reason and that section for that reason. Okay. So, okay, so thank you very much. All the best to you. Please take the time to work with me and fill in the affidavit, and please stay in touch. And also, please, please pass the message to all the victims that I might not have reached with my tweets, and ask them all to help us. And I'm pretty sure together we can work this out. We have done actually more, and we have made more progress in the last few months than in years before. And my insight as into complex systems and into networks actually tells me that we will be making progress faster every single week. So things will change faster, and they will change faster than they were changing before. Okay, so all the best. Have a good day or a good night, and see you soon. And thank you very much for listening. Bye for now, and all the best.